Thank you so much for doing this. You're definitely a busy guy. Why don't you go ahead and just give a brief summary of all the different hats you wear so we can set a
All
baseline
right.
here?
First one is you work for my company, Broadfield Distributing.
Mm-hmm.
Broadfield Distributing is a distributor of video technology, uh, post production things like cameras. We also sell gear in the storage space. So, I think you have one of our hard drives you just picked up to back up the show, one of those little orange pucks from LaCie
Well,
that I love.
it's actually the pro version, so it's the
Oh, nice.
NVMe. Yeah, it's actually working out really good.
Cool. And it looks like the video just got a lot better, right?
A little bit, yeah. It maybe
Because
a
we're
cloud.
cloudy.
All right, good. Let's hope for a couple more clouds.
And then the third part of our business is the streaming. And a year
Mm-hmm.
ago, live streaming was a third of our business. And actually, it was something that I consciously started steering us to around 2015, realizing it was an opportunity. But in the last 6 months, with the COVID epidemic and churches needing to live stream to their audience, teachers needing to go remote, corporations needing to do, they can't have sales conferences or conventions anymore. So that part of our business exploded, which is fun and great and
Mm-hmm.
makes you a super busy guy in the warehouse. And
Of
then
course.
we also have another division called Video Guys, and Video Guys is our direct web reseller website. And on that website, I also every Tuesday do a Video Guys live show at 3 o'clock to about 3:20 or 3:30, depending if I have guests on or not. And we talk about
Mm-hmm.
the technology and the products we sell and stuff like that. And that's my business world.
Right.
And then outside of the business world, I've put myself back. I got reelected back on the local Plainview Old Bethpage Board of Ed. I was on the Board of Ed previously for 9 years, from 2007 to 2016. I got involved with that over a conflict with the way math was being taught in our schools, believe it or not, and that
Like
got me into it.
Common
And then
Core or something.
it was
Yeah.
even before Common Core. We used to call it fuzzy math.
Yeah.
And what happened is it's very funny. Is one of my old time customers actually works in Wisconsin, and he made a video for someone who was really upset with the way they were teaching math in Wisconsin. And he posted the video just wanting comments on what people thought about the video quality and all that. I got so obsessed with the math part of it
Right.
that I came home and asked my kids, with the time we're in, I think third grade and fifth grade, or maybe fourth grade, sixth grade, and I asked them, what is 363 divided by 3?
Mm-hmm.
And my older son, who I know can do mental math because I was teaching him times tables to keep him quiet in the back of the car,
Right.
is going through all these steps in his head. My daughter Gabby's just looking at me blankly. I'm like, this isn't really long division. It's 363 divided by 3. You got to see that, it's 121. It's not a hard thing to
Right.
figure out. It wasn't hard, complicated numbers. There was no carrying. There was no borrowing.
Mm-hmm.
And they just couldn't do it. And then I started investigating just what kind of math they were doing. And it turned out they were using this fuzzy math program called Investigations. And
Okay.
I started this whole uprising in our community. And this is before there was such a thing as social media or anything like that. But I started getting names. I was a coach and I ran divisions. I started accumulating emails from everyone in town. People were giving me their PTA list, their Cub Scouts, their Brownie list, their gymnastics list. And I built it up to I had a list of like 2,000 names in town.
Wow.
And I would send out these email blasts. And I said, I'm going to unleash the internet on the superintendent and try to make changes happen. And we had this little pack of math people who were these crazy people. We actually all got together, and at some point, someone, actually the guy who was the head of the teachers union, said, you can keep doing this all you want, Bettan, but you're not going to make change unless you get on the Board of Ed. I said, well, I don't want to be on the Board of Ed. I just want to fix math. He goes, no. He said, it's this simple. It's not your group. It's you. If you want change, you got to do this. You're the guy who can say this, who comes across right. You should do it. So that was the one and only time he ever supported me in my Board of Ed running.
Right.
And we had 3 people who wanted to get on the Board of Ed. I was at the NAB show, which is a big show in April, and I get calls from all my friends that the superintendent at the Board of Ed meeting announced that he was retiring, that he was resigning. So we ran him out of town, and change started happening. So, and we got rid of that math program. And then when I got into the whole thing, I realized that there were problems a lot bigger than math going on in the district. We really had some serious financial shortcomings. So I used my financial background and stuff like that. And 9 years later, we had a bond going. We're rebuilding all the classrooms, putting in new infrastructure and IT and stuff like that. We invested in backup generators. We redid all the burners to make them both the ability to do gas or oil so that we could flip to whichever was more efficient.
Right.
Replaced windows, really rebuilt the infrastructure of the school district. So I'm very proud of that. And I was done. I lost an election by 18 votes that I my opponents took it more seriously than I did. I took my community for granted. I got what I deserved.
It happens.
But I licked my wounds and said, okay, I'm done with it. And
Mm-hmm.
I was okay. Still came to some meetings. Still kept in touch with my board of ed friends. And lo and behold, all of a sudden, last winter, before this is like December-ish, one of the gals who was actually, we butted heads a lot on the board of ed, but I respected her, and I think she respected me for our governance, but we didn't agree on a whole lot of stuff. She had to resign because of personal reasons. So at the time, I said, we're hiring a new superintendent who I would hope they had already picked someone, but I didn't know yet. And I said, I think I'm going to go back into this. I told Lisa, I said, I think maybe I should run because I'm worried that some Yahoo crazy person is going to get on the board, make the new superintendent's life miserable. So I said, you know what? I'll put my hat in the ring. I'll run for this. My wife Lisa was super supportive of me of it. She actually said it was her idea for me to run again, and it probably was. And I was going to run for this open spot, and there was going to be a runoff election, and then boom, the world went to hell, and this whole COVID thing hit. And when the COVID thing blew up, I was still, because I was kind of getting back involved, I was talking to several board members. I was talking to the superintendent, nothing confidential, but just talking to them. And I was kind of a man on the street giving them some feedback of what I was seeing going on in the community and stuff like that. And then when it came time to do the general election, I told my wife, I said, I could do this. I think I could be a big help. I know how to run things. I'm not new to it. And we're going to need all the help we can get. And experience is going to matter because we're trying to reopen schools, next week. And it's, cross our fingers, everything will go right. We're doing the best plans we can, but it's no one's got a plan book on this. There is no playbook you can follow. This has never happened before.
Yeah. So you said a lot of things and a lot of different things I want to get to, but being a guy that's in the tech industry, especially with a specialization, right? Like live streaming, that's got to be so important to the education, like the foundation of education right now.
It is. And it's funny because I know you've heard me say this all the time when we do our podcasts, and we do we do webinars. The more webinars presented out, we live stream on Facebook and YouTube and stuff. And we do them we've done a lot on how to do an event, how to do stuff. And in fact, this Tuesday, we're doing one for teachers. And one of the things I tell people all the time is that you never get your first live stream right. And even when you started on this, I said, it takes 4. It's a crazy number, but those first 3 you got to write off as, hopefully the third one you foul off a pitch, so you get another pitch, and you can get on base. But your first 2, if they come out well, you got lucky. Trust me, the third one will blow up in your face and make you miserable.
Right.
It really, you gotta learn about these bumps and skips, and that stuff doesn't always go right. Things break down. The internet can be a wonky, funky thing sometimes, and you could do everything right, and it could change on you.
Yeah.
Lighting, suns, clouds can screw everything up because I'm outdoors.
I was going to the warehouse to do most of my shows because I couldn't get any service here.
Oh, that's right. You had like optimum awful level, right?
Yeah. I've got Verizon now, thankfully, but yeah, I had to create like a mobile studio.
Yeah. And you did a great job. And I liked watching some of those early shows, but
thank you.
You were learning as you went, and it's a lot of trial and error. So for all those teachers out there who are having to teach students, remotely and everything, I'm saying, I know you did stuff in the spring, and that was kind of just triage. Now you got a chance to plan a little bit, do a little better, think of what you're doing. Still plan on it taking, 4 times. And that's 4 times with your classes, with the kids in front of you. As many times as you practice as a dress rehearsal, that's not live. Live is for real. Crap can go wrong. Shit blows up. You got to be there, and you got to really be doing it and reacting. And one of the things you got to do is you got to stay calm. It's really easy to lose your cool. When you're the teacher, you're the talent, but you're also the tech person because you may be the only person in your room, or you may be doing it from your home. So I say, don't bite off more than you can chew. The most important thing to remember is that in our industry, content is king. Right. And there's no more important content than what a teacher is teaching to your students. So don't let the technology get in the way of your content. Make the technology make your content better.
Right. So I've actually had 3. Well, I'm gonna have 3 teachers, but I've had 2 so far. It looks like every month I've been getting like an art teacher in. It just worked out that way. And Chris Yee, he was one of the guests on the show, and he actually bought a new computer and he started setting things up, and he is more technology inclined. And like when I asked him, do you plan on setting it up just in case? His answer was yes. So on the other side of it, I had another art teacher who wasn't really, they were making videos. They taught younger kids. So he was just making the videos and he was getting into that, but like, he didn't seem like he was planning on diving into. I don't want to speak for them, but it just seems like not everybody's on the same page. Maybe it depends on the age levels. Maybe it depends on the district.
Every district's having to present their own plan in New York to the state for approval. And that plan is any combination of three components. One of the components is all the kids are remote. You're not having them in the classroom.
Right.
The other is you're putting them in the classroom. You found a safe way to do it based on social distancing, students and and teachers per square foot, and masks and plastic. Some schools have kids walking around with little plastic trifodes, plexiglass tri they'll put on their desk. And there's also the hybrid model, which is some class, some home. And that's what our district has decided to do. With our younger kids, we have always been blessed to have large classrooms and small class sizes. So in our elementary schools, typically we had 18 to 20 in a class. We've knocked that down to 16s and 17s. And we've been able to get all the kids in there, keeping them 6 feet apart. So our elementary kids are going to be in the classroom. We got all kinds of crazy schedules. We're taking all kinds of precautions. We're trying to up the ventilation, do everything possible. But for our high school and our bigger kids, that's just not possible. So we actually have them going either Monday and Wednesday to school, Tuesday and Thursday getting instruction that's kind of assignments to be doing online, and then Friday everyone's live. So if you're A through K in the alphabet, you're Monday and Wednesday. If you're L through Z, you're Tuesday and Thursday. On your off day, you still have to go to school and check in with your teacher, but you'll be doing assignments, projects, reports, reading assignments, what have you. But on Friday, all the teachers will be giving remote instruction to all the students they have. And what we really like about that is if the governor decides to pull the plug and says everyone has to go to remote, our teachers will have been accomplished. They know how to do it. They'll have done it. And also we feel that it kind of gives a good chance for all the students, whether you're A through K, L through Z, or the kids taking remote on a Friday, everyone can make sure everyone's on the same page, learning the same stuff, working on the same things. And, we're a high-performing district, so we have a lot of kids taking APs. We have a lot of kids with special ed. We have a lot of kids Regis level, a whole mix in our high school, and we wanted to make sure that we were able to maintain our other stuff. So our electives, our robotics, our DECA, our languages, our all that other stuff that separates us from a lot of the other districts out there. And in order to do that, this was the way that we could come up with that worked the best. It's some compromises, but we think it's going to work, and we're very hopeful. And the key to it is it'll only work if our community works, and that is if the community gets a high infection rate, the schools are going to get infected. I believe firmly in my heart the school will not be the source of an outbreak. We will be impacted by an outbreak that comes from outside of the schools.
Now, one of the things, when you're talking these things out, right, and people are making plans and stuff, it seems to me like everybody's very quickly adapting to certain languages and stuff, but like it seems like everybody's talking long term, like very long term. Is there even an idea of it going back? Is it, all right, we're going to do this until this point, or is it just, this is what we're doing?
I think we're going to be doing this until we have a vaccine in a lot of communities, because I just think people are going to be, your child's your most prized possession.
Of course.
And we talk about this all the time in the office. Everyone's got a different level of risk tolerance, what they think is bad. It's funny because we've kind of gotten used to it around the office, but still when we turn a corner and we see someone else, we'll all back up, let someone go first, stuff like that. There are people who haven't left their house yet, who are still, for the first time they saw their grandchildren, it was waving to them from their lawn. It wasn't a true, it wasn't a hug. It wasn't a kiss. It wasn't an embrace. It wasn't being that close to people, because everyone's got their own risk tolerance. Plus they have their own risk factors. You might have your own health risks. You might have an elderly parent at home. You might have a child who, is getting leukemia treatments. I hate to say, these are the things that can be happening that can affect everything. So everyone's level of risk and risk adjustment is different. But with that means someone else's risk can blow up someone who doesn't like risk life up. And that's just the reality of where we are.
You actually shared a pretty cool diagram that was like really easy to follow, so that maybe more people could understand it, where it's like you have a mask and you're by yourself, you're green, and then in a room 100 people all red, you're not, it's high risk. I like that.
That was from a UK study that I found this weekend, and what I really liked about the diagram is it basically broke everything down to several factors. Are you wearing a mask?
Right.
Is everyone wearing a mask, or just you wearing a mask? Is no one wearing a mask? Are you in a place that's highly dense or lightly populated? And then are you in a place, how good is the ventilation? And it's funny because as this whole thing began, for right or wrong or just a gut feeling, I just felt so much safer when I'm outdoors. So in my backyard, I'm outdoors. I can have 3 or 4 couples over. We're sitting on or around 6 feet apart from each other. I'm not going to say we're always 6 feet apart, but
Yeah.
we're on or about, and I'm feeling safe. But I have not yet gone into anyone's living room to hang out in their living room with them.
Yeah. Well,
That makes me nervous.
right. And they're saying that there's a very common theme between people having low vitamin D, being vitamin D deficient, and having have caught it, have had it.
Yeah, and it's just kind of it's they'll figure out factors as they go. You know, no one's really sure what's going on. The one thing about this epidemic that from the beginning they told us was if you're old and if you have health issues, you're going to be in trouble. And the stats have come out on that. You know, it's scary how dangerous this is to people who are elderly or have underlying health issues.
Yep.
And on the flip side, it's kind of crazy how not dangerous this is to relatively young, healthy people. But we do see that some people who are getting this are having longer term effects that weren't necessarily where I was sick, even asymptomatic. They're finding people have swollen hearts or other organs that are having problems. Now, it's too soon to tell whether these things are temporary, short term, long term, going to plague you for the rest of your life.
Right.
But this virus is so crazy because really, and I'm not a doctor and I don't play one on TV, but what it comes out to is it's your body's reaction to the virus that's really killing people. It's not the virus itself. It's your different people's bodies react in different ways and they attack things and attack their own organs and things like that. So it's scary. And anyone who's afraid, I understand it completely, but I also think we got to, well, getting back to education, I think kids need a school. They need that environment. And I think it's up to us to provide it to them. And I think in our district, Plainview Old Bethpage, we found out a way where those people who want their kids to be remote can. There's no penalty to doing it.
Yeah.
We're going to set up whole remote classrooms for kids. We're going to offer the same education, same opportunities and stuff like that. But one of the things we're also going to do is we're going to have periods like 1 week in, 2 weeks in, 4 weeks in, where parents can choose to say, I want to come back. Okay. So we can't let parents send their kids back every day because it'll create chaos in the classroom every time a new kid comes in. But we decided we would have certain key dates where if parents opt to come back in, they can. And so then we can alert teachers that, hey, you're going to have 2 more kids in your classroom. You have a kid in your classroom. We'll load balance where we need to. If, everyone says they want to go into Mrs. McGillicuddy's room and no one wants to go into Mr. Frank's room, well, we may have to load balance some kids to make that happen on the elementary school. But the key to, I think, about that is, I think, as people get more and more comfortable, they'll want to send their kids to school, but they want to see that it's really safe and that people aren't getting sick, and they're not going to believe that till actually time passes and we show them
to go through it,
that it's true.
No, I was talking to an old friend of mine in Jersey, and she has, I think he's 7. Let's say 7. Let's say 7. That's returning to school next week, and they go to a Catholic school, so it's a little different. But basically, he has to wear a mask, a face shield. Everybody's 6 feet apart from each other. You can't touch anybody, and you have to bring your own toys, and it's not encouraged to really socialize.
Yeah, socializing is going to be different. And what's crazy is I laugh. When I first got on the Board of Ed in 2007, 8, we had just gotten to the point where the entire district and the whole educational community on every level nationwide was embracing, get the kids out of the rows, have them sit in these group desks where it would be 6 or 7 kids around a desk. And it was a more inviting, I'm not going to say playful, but more socially interactive.
Makes sense.
It wasn't that rigid kind of military type way school was. And what breaks my heart is last year we had started even putting in different things, like we had like laundry baskets and bean bags. There were certain kids who had ADD or other issues where when you gave them the ability to sit in a space, which was where they always wanted to get up and go to, if you just gave them that spot to go to, that you found out they would stay there. Lo and behold, it wasn't just these kids with the willies and the ants. That sitting structure in a chair didn't work for them. But let them sit there in a laundry basket or in a bean bag, and they could pay attention for an hour, an hour and a half. So, and that's what you want, right? So we had gotten there, and now all that is just blown up. And I talked to the principals in our elementary schools, and it breaks their heart, and the teachers too, because they'd worked so hard to get to an environment that was so kid-centric and kid-friendly, recognizing that all these learners have different styles and different needs. And now for this godforsaken safety, which we have to have, we're throwing all that away. Believe me, the day we can go back to the good old, to what we were doing just 2 years ago, it will be embraced. There will be parties in schools, and we will love to have these kids, sitting around group tables, doing group projects, and, hugging each other when they get things right.
Yeah, it's a little scary, sad, and a little scary, right? Because these are fundamental years for some of these kids, and we're already kind of distant. You know, you saying you made strides, but not everybody does, and we're already kind of distant as a society because it's always through the computers. But it's like now you can't play with any kids on the playground. You can't do this and that. So how are they learning their social cues?
Yeah, that's going to be really, really rough. My wife Lisa is an aide, and she was a lunch aide. So I used to tease that she was the mean lunch lady. But the kids all loved her and always wanted to hug her because she would give them boundaries. She'd be like, that kid would like throw his like sandwich or leave it on the floor, drop food on the floor, smear ketchup on it at the table. And my wife would go, "Do you do that at home? Should we call your mom and ask if that's okay?" She would call the kids out for misbehavior. So they would love it, and they would all respect her on it. And now that's not going to happen. Now she's actually going to have a really cool job this year. She's actually going to be floating between the 5 kindergarten classes to support them, to help the teachers a little bit, just as an aide.
Cool.
And we're not going to have lunch aides the way we did. We're going to be doing lunch in the elementary schools by basically bringing in a cart full of lunch, putting it on kids' desks, having them open it up, then say, "Okay, take your masks off. Now eat. Now put your masks back on. We're going outside, and now take them off." And
you can take them off.
It's insanity.
Outside. Right.
And that'll be the least restrictive part of every kid's day.
Yeah, no, I feel bad. I don't know. I think it's going to have real long, like you were saying, physically, we don't know how it's going to affect us in the long run, but definitely mentally, I mean, socially, this is going to, affect us.
Yeah, it's unfortunately stuff like this. This is game changing. Our older kids kind of had already learned how to socialize online. They were doing FaceTime. They weren't doing Zoom, but they were doing various different ways to communicate with each other, online and using screens to communicate. But it was an option. It wasn't their only choice.
Exactly.
It's very different when you're doing it because that's going against the norm of what your parents expect.
Yep.
And doing it now because you have to do it. And let's face it, man, how good and fun something is when you're told you have to do it. It's just not the same.
Yeah.
You can't. Eventually, that enthusiasm goes, and you start to get sick of it,
Well, even me as an adult, it's like my most frustrating thing, and it's not to take away from anybody else's pains or woes through this thing, losses or anything, but it's been a huge inconvenience to me. And I just want to go sit at the pub, and have a couple of beers and eat some lunch, enjoy my weekend, that kind of thing, or go listen to live music. It's like...
live music kills me, Alex. You're a musician, so I'm always putting on sharing watch parties.
Yeah.
I meant to put a watch party onto this. I didn't. I messed up.
We'll get it.
Can I still do that?
Yeah, totally. Who was the guy actually? I've been trying to find him again. That was he did like 100 shows.
Josh Daniels band.
Mm-hmm. Awesome.
And he's still doing it. He's up to like day 165. He does Grateful Dead
cool.
music and other music like that, but he does wild cover stuff. And he's one of those. I want to try to just set up this watch party. So excuse me for a second.
No problem.
I'm trying to remember how I do that.
I think you just share it.
Yeah. Right? Here it is. Share. Cool. Share with start watch party.
And just make sure you mute it so it doesn't. I'm going to go through the chat real quick myself and get some shout outs while you do that. Okay.
Cool.
All right. So we got Silver Fox. Thank you for watching. VIP member. He told me last night he was pretty excited for this show because you were coming on. Ellen Hurst, thank you. Another VIP member. Alexis Stein, thank you for tuning in. It's 5 o'clock somewhere. That's right. John K, thank you very much for tuning in. Oh, we got Nick P in the house. Anything good in the cup? Nick, I got Doghead, American Beauty. What did you say you had again? Juicy what?
I have Sloop City Juice Bomb.
There you go.
I'm trying to put my hat over the camera to get us a little more shade.
There you go. Chrissy says we're going with a hybrid model and have an A and B schedule as well. 712 HS district, and all of our students have iPads. We are good tech wise.
Yeah.
And Lady D, thanks for watching. Thank you so much. That's another thing too. So I guess immediately, right? You have to start taking things away from certain things to get your tech budget up. Like, how does that work? Is the government supplying more?
Well, it's funny. The government is actually, we've done some shows on this, and we're benefiting from as a company. Is There's something called the CARES Act, and that's where they did the $1,200 that people got. That's where the extra $600 unemployment comes from, and that's where those PPP loans come in. That people have different opinions on them, what have you. But one of the things they're also doing is they put about $35 billion into schools, public schools, college schools, all education, in order to be able to deliver distance and remote learning. So a lot of schools have money that wasn't there that's now available.
Cool.
The problem is it's in such a short term. There's shortages. I mean, Alex, you know what's going on. We sell, like, the camera that I'm on right now is a little $80, USB camera, but it's far superior to what you find in your
laptop
or what have you. We also sell these PTZ cameras where, a teacher could put one in the room and it could be preset to show the whiteboard, to show the teacher at their computer, even to show the classroom, the kids in the classroom. You can move it, you can change it. Well, we're sucking China dry on these, and they're all kind of made in China in the Far East. We can't get them enough. I mean, we have orders where we're getting, 200 in. And by the time the 200 to get to us, we've sold an additional 250 to 300 more. And Alex will have days where we'll get, 16 pallets of stuff in. And by the end of the day, there's 1.5 pallets left.
It's
just insane what's going on with that stuff.
It really is. You can't keep any of it.
Yeah.
It's just going out.
One of the things that I'm really concerned with, because I look at public education as a whole, not just our district.
Sure.
Our district invested in technology. We went to a 1-to-1 Chromebook initiative that started when I was on the Board of Ed and got completed.
Time out. 1-to-1 Chromebook. What does that mean?
That means every kid and every teacher's got their own Chromebook.
Okay.
They log in through Google Meets, Google Docs, Google Tools, through their student ID. So that one login gets them access to all this educational stuff, and it's fantastic. We did it. We had already spent that money. We were moving on this initiative. Well, now the world's blown up. And what about those districts that didn't do that don't have these already? What about the kids in inner cities? What about the rural areas that might not have the bandwidth, where every kid doesn't have, the bandwidth and can't even use his cell phone because the cell service is, spotty in the area? And it just, that really concerns me a lot, because there's this, we refer to it as the digital divide. And I think it's massive. And there are people being distracted by the post office because, mail-in voting, not mail-in the post office. No. The real issue in America is the digital divide. We need to make high-speed bandwidth like fresh running water and like electricity. And every home and every business and every area of the United States of America needs to be blanketed in high bandwidth, whether it's wired, Wi-Fi, 5G, whatever it has to be. And we're distracted by things that aren't really what's there. But that's what you have to do, because it's just unfair that my kid in the suburbs has plenty of bandwidth and some kid in a rural area in the city may not have any bandwidth at all. So the city might have given a kid an iPad, but his apartment building doesn't have high-speed internet.
Yeah, I think we're going to see repercussions on so many different fronts going forward. And it's like, how do we make that more of a public utility?
Public utility. That's the exact word I was looking for that I botched.
Yeah. Is it so? We're going to go in so many different directions, and I'm trying to follow one train of thought, but it's working. So how do you feel about net neutrality? Now I'm botching it. Net
neutrality.
Yes. And how does that? Is it that kind of mindset?
No, that was kind of a politicized misunderstanding. And I don't want to say misunderstanding. A lot of people just didn't understand what that really was, what the repercussions were. We're far bigger threatened by, Facebook and Amazon and these big Google companies, controlling such a large portion of, the bandwidth and the space that's out there.
Right.
But the truth is they all compete with each other. So you can't say anyone's really got a monopoly, can you?
Yeah.
So you're
no, exactly. But I mean, like, it should be like laying down lanes, right? So that everybody has access to it. Now, I know you're a 5G guy. Or you?
Yes.
All right. So there's two different types of 5G, right? They got the sublight, and then what is it, micro?
Right. The micro is the one that they want to put in like unfortunately they can't do it now, in an arena, so that everyone watching the game could interact with augmented reality, other stats and things like that in the venue, and people could vote on, did you like that play? Do we need an instant replay? Should we boo the ref? All this cool digital stuff that was going to be out there. Those wavelengths are very short. They can't even go through my shirt, let alone a wall. Human beings, impossible. So you have to have line of sight. So that's different. And that's setting up those little, you would need, tons and tons of antennas. We're nowhere near there. But in a world that has that, that's where they're saying, autonomous vehicles and other things can really flourish.
Yeah.
The other form of 5G is the longer wavelength, and that's what really lets you get the higher bandwidth, the better video streaming, the stuff like that. That's still moving ahead very quickly. And in fact, a lot of the cell providers kind of pivoted during this whole thing and said, we're not able to get people out there. We're not able to get access to places we didn't have before, but we are able to access the towers that are ours already. So they're really putting in that long wave 5G or 6G, the 6D, whatever it's called.
Right.
And that's what we're going to be seeing first. But we'll be blanketed in 5G in a couple of years. When I did a show with the folks at LiveView, they make this little product, the Solo, that we sell that lets you basically bring your bandwidth with you through cellular bonding. We don't have to get into the technology on that, but they know all about this stuff. And they had said by 2025, 5G would be it would be taken for granted. We'd be talking about 6G and 7G. But he said that plan is still in line, but what we thought would happen by 2022 is getting pushed out. But the investment of the money has not declined. So these companies are still going to invest every penny they need to in making this technology work.
Well, they kind of have to. I mean, if not, someone else is going to.
Yes.
So I've also noticed a couple of mergers and stuff. You don't have to get into all that, but people merging businesses together. As soon as they get the green light, they're just going to go for it, right? And then so when you say blanket it, you mean as a nation, we're going to be covered with accessible 5G.
5G.
Cool.
I hope.
Yes. I know you're not just because you say it doesn't mean it's going to happen, but I would like for it to happen too.
Absolutely.
Especially for education and all these things too.
Yeah. You got to have a world where every kid gets the same access to the same opportunity. And when one kid can download videos and go to online sites and do projects like that, and another kid can't, it's not fair. And we talk about these kids having all this information at their fingertips, which is great, but every kid needs to have that information available. And we need to really spend a lot of time educating kids when they're young that just because you saw it on the internet doesn't make it true. I mean, I think one of the problems we have in this country right now is so many people see something stupid or something that to them they think isn't stupid, but to you may be stupid, me may not be, and they take it as a fact, and people don't dig deeper to try to find out, what's right or what's wrong. And the problem is it's not, this isn't any kind of like evil plot, but the same algorithm that says, I saw you car shopping and you're looking for mid-sized cars, so I'm going to send you mid-sized car ads. It's the same thing that does the same algorithm applies to politics, applies to food and restaurants, applies to the dresses and the clothes you wear. I mean, you look at this. I have this T-shirt. Now, my wife makes fun of me. I have 4 drawers filled of T-shirts because every time a cool T-shirt that's Grateful Dead or Ohio State or the Islanders or the Mets or whatever comes on my Facebook or my Instagram feed, I buy them.
Yeah.
So it knows I do, so I get more and more. So people always say, where'd you get that cool shirt? I go, it's my Instagram feed's loaded with them because I buy them from it all the time.
Right. Yeah. And I think
one of the things I talk to people a lot about is a lot of people talk about how social media divides us. And I think it does. So I implore everyone listening to do something that I do, which is I call it fuck the algorithm. So what I do is I have certain friends who I might be right wing, they might be left wing. Watch stuff that doesn't agree with you. Like it. Agree with it. Don't like it because you necessarily agree with it, but like it because that'll give the algorithm, you'll start seeing both sides. I had a friend who's a friend growing up who I know he writes for the New Yorker and the Atlantic, and he's very on the left, progressive, but he's a classic liberal in the classic sense. I'm more a conservative guy, but he was getting fed up with the crap that people were throwing around on Facebook and stuff. He was going to leave Facebook, and I begged him. I said, Pete, please don't leave Facebook. I need you to keep the algorithm sending me balanced stuff.
That's funny.
I'm always commenting on your stuff. We always comment back and forth. We like each other's stuff. You comment on my stuff sometimes. I said, you're like if I don't have you on my feed's going to turn to shit.
You're balancing it out.
So please stay there. Exactly. So always do that. Always do that. If you're, I even do that with hockey. I'm an Islander fan, but I'll click on Ranger articles. Why? Because I want to see those too. The algorithm will put you inside a tunnel if you allow it to. You don't have to allow it to. You can trick it. It's not tricking you. You just force it to show you other stuff by liking and interacting with other stuff that's outside of your normal mindset and your normal thinking.
Yeah, I don't think it's necessarily Facebook doing it. I think it's just how we are with it, right? How we're using it. And it's like you take the initiative to try to trick it, but not everybody thinks that way, So it's like people get stuck in these holes, like you're saying.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And they're stuck in these pits where they're hearing their own echo chamber and they're hearing what they want to hear. And they start believing stuff that isn't, that
Yeah.
it is exaggerated crap, but it's what you want to hear. So you love it,
Well, that's one thing I avoid. It's like, cause I know people have like, we're at the point now where people just have pre-planned reactions and things to say back to somebody. So it's not a conversation. It's like a tennis match that you've practiced 1,000 times. And we're so quick to be divisive like that.
Yeah, the country's gone into a bad place, and I blame Trump, and I blame the media, and I blame the media for giving Trump so much free publicity in 2016 that it's seen as what you can do, and the Trump method isn't just being used by Trump. I look at AOC, who we have here. I mean, she's doing the Trump playbook just from the left side of the page, but she's doing the same thing. She says it's good. All publicity is good publicity. And the truth of the matter is that's not good for this country. We need to find the middle, talk to each other, rationalize. Not everyone's right about everything. You can learn from other people.
Yeah.
You'll do better in life learning and listening to other people.
Well, I mean, it feels like we had more centered, whether you're left or right, there was way more people in the center than there was on the fringes. And now I feel like maybe it's not even that there's more people on the fringe, but maybe they're just much louder. Right?
It's being amplified by social media. I agree.
Yeah. So it's like, maybe it's not that there's so many, but these other guys are just in the center here. But I did see you posted about libertarianism and talking about free markets and stuff. So another thing you're into is economics, right? So when we talk about free markets and things, and it's actually been brought up on the show a couple of times here, what are your thoughts on that? And especially during a pandemic, how would it help and hurt?
Well, I had an interesting conversation with someone who said, libertarian, I agree with a lot of your libertarian stuff, but you can't think that would have helped in a pandemic. And I kind of think it probably wouldn't, because, as libertarian as I am, I'm libertarian because I believe in fiscal responsibility. I believe we shouldn't be the military police state of the world. I feel our own police shouldn't be militarized. I believe what you do in your home is your business. Do it all you want. Just don't tell me what to do in my home if we're not hurting each other. I think every American has the right to have a gun, but there's responsibilities that should come with that. I'm not the crazy libertarian. So Second Amendment, give me all the guns you want. I want to say, treat a gun like a car. You can have a gun, get a license, get insurance, get tested, show how to use it properly. I believe everyone should have the right to buy a gun, but that doesn't mean guns should be in every home.
Yeah, only if it's in a home that's responsible.
And from an economy, I just think one of the things that's crazy is, the right accuses the left of being socialist. The left accuses the right of being heartless. But the truth of the matter is the problem is the two-party system that rewards corruption and fraud and my friends doing well because I'm in power versus free markets. You look at healthcare. Even before Obamacare, no one can call healthcare free enterprise. It isn't. It's one of the most manipulated, abusive systems we have. I mean, look at what drugs cost, prescription drugs. The only reason prescription drugs are so expensive in our country is because we have laws that allow this to happen and actually encourage it to happen rather than letting free markets take place, and that frustrates me to no end. But I also think there are certain things that you have to say are in the public good that you have to have. You have to have roads, you need electricity, you need fresh water. I want high bandwidth, and I want a certain level of medical care available for all people. I also want some kind of catastrophic care that, if your world, you get cancer, you get something terrible, you don't go bankrupt. But by the same regards, and it's funny, we have a person in our office, Sylvia, and she is an incredibly in shape woman, exercises 12 days a week. She's crazy about that. But one of the things she said with this whole epidemic, when it came out, when you look at who it's attacking, and said, don't people have to take responsibility for not being diabetic and not being obese and, not being so out of shape that you're in that percentage that's getting sick and is so threatened by this? And you could almost say, is this whole thing Mother Nature's way of saying, let's equalize things and take a look at this? And, that's something you really got to talk about. In a world of personal accountability and things like that, well, if I'm healthy, I should be able to buy insurance cheaper than you who aren't healthy. Now, pre-existing conditions are one thing, but as a big guy, being fat isn't a pre-existing condition. It's a lifestyle choice.
Yeah.
I could be exercising. Look what you did. You got yourself in shape. You made a dedicated commitment to it. Yep. You're looking great. You lost weight. You're doing good. And people can control things in their life. You can live a healthier life. But when you have a system that rewards people to not be healthy, that encourages it, that puts terrible, horrible food that gets subsidized because the government made a pyramid chart back in the 60s,
which is crazy, right?
funded by the sugar industry that made, fat and meat the enemy, when the truth of the matter is that pyramid was completely wrong.
Well, you need all
Why
of
was it completely wrong? Not because of science, because it was funded by government people wanting to manipulate the government to line their own pockets.
And we're using it still today, which is crazy. And it's like sugar is one of the worst things for you. It's not that you don't need it though, right? I had a national bodybuilder champion on the show, this guy Al Trapiano, and he was telling me about like sugar and everything, but like fat, oils, like your brain needs that. Like that's why you take fish oil. It's it's just a matter of how you're taking it,
and most people need salt.
Yeah,
if you have high blood pressure, you have to be careful. Most people, so we villainize things because we're told by certain industries to. And like, I know about the time you started working out, get yourself in shape. I went on a diet. My diet was really simple. I said, I firmly believe everything I'm reading that processed sugars, processed carbs are the enemy. So what I did is I get my sugars from like eating a banana or a piece of fruit. I got my carbs from eating oatmeal for lunch and stuff like that. And for dinner, I had a healthy dinner. Well, pre-COVID, I managed to lose 30 pounds. Now, one of the reasons I lost 30 pounds too is this is an enemy of everything. This is the most processed carb there is in beer. And I will admit that since COVID hit, my alcohol intake has gone up dramatically from where I was, watching myself, but I still managed to not put any of my weight back on. And I didn't really diet. I cut out processed sugar and processed carbs. If I wanted to munch on a snack, it was either potato chips or, I know they're fried and they're potatoes, but they don't have sugar. And they're not processed carbs if they're a real potato chip, not Pringles.
Right.
And, I eat a lot of popcorn. Popcorn's a carb, but it's just popcorn,
Didn't think
and I get lightly salted popcorn. I'd snack. I'd eat stuff. I'm not saying I had it perfected down that. I was not exercising near as much as I should have, or I could have probably lost 40 or 50 pounds.
Right.
Maybe 60 if I exercised like you. You were a demon.
Yeah, I got to get back
to that. It's amazing how my favorite example of why we need libertarianism and free markets is the health of this country.
Yeah.
The terrible health of this country is completely subsidized.
So wait, hold on though. But if you're saying, so we're saying like you have the freedom to do what you want to do. Do you think that's not just going to encourage more people to just not get in shape?
Well, no, because I think part of the problem is the government has subsidized things that are terrible and bad. So you get those subsidies out of there and you stop it. One of the things that goes on that's really terrible is, pricing of like raw produce and things that are good for you are very expensive. Going to McDonald's and getting a $5 whatever and this terrible food and a big gulp at 7-Eleven is incredibly inexpensive. And where do you see a higher concentration of that type of stuff? In poorer areas.
Right.
So the system encourages the bad habits of the bad food and the stuff like that. I mean, we have things like food stamps and stuff like that, which I'm not saying are good or bad programs. But I'm saying you could say you have to buy healthy food with it.
Well, that's the one thing, right? Like maybe they only work at Whole Foods. I don't know.
Yeah.
Somewhere like that, like a market, like a farmer.
Yeah. Did not think we'd be discussing health and stuff like that. It's not my strong suit. You can see me. I'm not the healthiest guy in the world, but I'm healthier than I was. But I think it's an example of like personal choice and what it comes down to. And, if I'm going to buy health insurance, I would love to see, if you can run a mile in 10 or 15 minutes, your health insurance should be cheaper. Why? Because people who can do that are in better health. Now, I understand people can say that discriminates against people with bad legs and other things. I get it. And you can always have a pass. But so many Americans are just unhealthy for no good reason other than they're unhealthy.
I think there's such an issue, though, with people complaining like, well, I can't do that, so they shouldn't get it. But you might do something that they can't do. Like, what is that? What happened to America where it was like, you have a skill, guess what? You're going to go far with it. If you don't, figure it out.
That is what the bingo is we should all have the same opportunities to make the best of our God-given talents.
Right.
We are not guaranteed the same outcomes. And that's something that I think has really gotten lost. I think it's really gotten lost in the whole discussion of what's going on in the world today. LeBron James is a gifted athlete. You can't make any mistake about that. The guy also has worked so hard on his craft. That's why he's the best basketball player in the world. He took that and made the most of it. There's a lot of kids who are great basketball players who have the same physical ability, who never amounted to anything on a sports level because they didn't put that pursuit in it. That also doesn't mean that they're not doctors, brain surgeons, or guitarists for bands now.
Right.
But everyone should be given the same opportunity to pursue their dream. And when you put things in the way that impede people from being able to get the most out of whatever those talents are, that you encourage not hard work.
Right.
You're putting systems in place as the government that kind of long term become self-fulfilling prophecies. I don't want to get too political on stuff like that, but it breaks my heart that, one of the key things for success in America is growing up in a two-parent family where you're loved by two parents. Not only does that give you love and support, but it also economically, once women got equal rights, became necessary, to support the kind of income you need. And when you have families which have single family, it's terrible. And, we spent 20 years, the shows on, single mom and stuff like that, glorifying, this lifestyle. It's subsidized by the country, by the government. And, and this is one of those things where, you reap what you sow. We got to stop this. We got to create I think the family unit is critical to the success of America.
I agree.
Now, a family to me is two adults raising children. You could be two men, you could be two women, you could be a man and a Martian, but it's two people. It's a team raising a family that maybe also has additional help from other generations, from uncles and aunts. It's not a woman trying to do it by herself with no additional supports other than some money from the government.
Right.
You have to have more in place.
Yeah. No, I think it all stems back to education, right? I guess that's really what it comes to. So if we have a solid education, even during a pandemic, right, and we get some more freedom of choice and maybe less of this because I have bad knees and can't run, right? That kind of attitude, maybe we'll start making leaps and bounds towards a more productive society, a more wholesome society. Maybe go back to our roots, so to speak, a little bit.
Alex, I wish you were right, but I was very against the heavy-handed shutting down of the economy when we did it. But then I saw what people in my own community were doing at the time, still playing together, still getting together, families still having sleepovers with 4 or 5 kids when schools are closed and families are still having sleepovers. I realized, I said, without personal accountability and having bad decisions create outcomes that are bad for people, people aren't going to change on this, and we're not going to fix it. And libertarianism can't work if we allow people to not experience bad things. Now, I'm not saying horrible things. I'm not saying that at all, but I'm saying actions have consequences. My mom used to always say that to me, for every action, there's a reaction. Actions have consequences. And I really think as a country, we've lost our mind on that. We don't think actions have consequences. I can put my finger up and spit on a cop, and then all of a sudden when a cop busts me in the head, he's wrong. I can go rob someplace, and then when it turns bad, I'm wrong. And I'm not trying to place blame or simplify things, but the bottom line is there's no, you need to take personal responsibility for what's going on. And when you look at this epidemic, look at this whole thing with masks. I hate wearing a mask. I absolutely hate it. However, if I can't be socially distant and I'm indoors near people, I put on a mask.
Sure.
Why? To protect myself, to protect you, and to be that domino that creates the gap that maybe it doesn't spread to someone else. Now, that is taking personal responsibility for the good of everyone. Why are so many people having such a hard time with this concept?
Because
it is not difficult.
They're entitled. And this is my biggest complaint about anybody, really. It's like, I feel like if you have a group of 4 people, 2 of them are complaining. And it's just weird. And it's just not, I was just talking to somebody, it was like growing up in the 90s and like observing as a child, and then like in the 2000s, like, oh, this is gonna be pretty cool. Like, things were just done a certain way. And then I remember when it was like 4th grade, I think it was, and it was before the towers went down. It was like beginning of the school year. We made a transition at one point that just kind of happened where you weren't allowed to use calculators. You weren't allowed to use them. You weren't allowed. And then all of a sudden they were giving everybody calculators and putting boards up where they could touch, and computer classes and all these things. And it just changed. There was like a big change. And I'm not saying that's bad, but I do think right around there is when things started changing. Now, maybe we're more connected through the internet, so we're putting magnifying glasses on things.
I laugh because I use a term, and I use it for our town. I say we're a participation trophy town. And I think what you're seeing really coming to roost is when you have adults who were raised in the world of participation trophies, no winners, no losers. Everyone's the best. Oh, honey, nothing's ever your fault. We don't keep score of games and stuff like that. what kind of adult do you grow up to
That's
be?
not
And I
good.
think we're seeing it, and it's not a good thing. It is not.
That's a good point. Is the participation trophy. It's like, just because you show up and do something, if you don't do it right, like, it's like when people come to work for me, right? It's like, I don't mind honest mistakes. I don't mind them at all. But like, if I have to tell you to stop doing something 6 times, then it becomes an issue. And I feel like a lot of people have it in them. It's just been instilled in them where you can't do any wrong. You'll just be like no child left behind kind of thing. It's like you'll be pulled along. Society will just keep you on the back end. You'll just get through life that way.
But like, Alex, let's get back to the company a little bit, because you opened up something really big. 10 years ago, I made a decision that I was going to try to transform us from a small family business to a bigger business. And one of the reasons I realized, one of the things I realized I had to do that was I had to mentor my managers, who are going to be the people who are going to be that next rung of the company, who weren't me and my brothers.
Right.
And I was going to have to make them become true managers. They had to start thinking like entrepreneurs. They had to understand how to run people, how to do things, and take accountability and all that. And you know what? I talked about it for a couple of years, didn't get anywhere. You know when it happened? When I let people make mistakes and I let them clean their own mistakes. You can come to me for help. I'm here to help you. But the bottom line is I have to give you the opportunity to make a decision, make a mistake. Hopefully you bounce some ideas off of me so things get a little better. Maybe you don't, but you have to do that. And you know, Kim took a long time to get there. She got there with you. I think you were mentored very well, and you see that right now. We can't grow as a company if people don't make mistakes. I need mistakes, because you learn from mistakes. And sometimes some guy's mistake points out a weakness that would have killed you 6 months or a year down the road. So that person screwing up was that stitch in time that saves you 9. Or that person tried to do something and found a weakness in the computer system or in your inventory control system that, you know what? That weakness was always there. Everyone was always just kind of working around it because we knew it was there, because this person made the mistake and exposed something that we shouldn't tolerate it. It should be fixed. It shouldn't be something everyone works around. And I think as a company, you've seen over the last 2 years, we're much less workarounds and much more working smarter.
And that's so important. And since we're talking about the company, you want to give a little background. I mean, it's basically a true American company. It's been in the family for what, 38 years now?
Yeah, the company started when I was in high school, and it's very funny. My dad, these are the early days of VCRs, when VCRs first came out. And my dad was a manufacturer's rep, and he picked up a bunch of lines that were selling accessory type products. And these were things like dust covers, the little clear boxes you rent films in, A/B switches, tape rewinders, stuff like that. All the big distributors, all the big retailers didn't want to carry it. But all over the world, these little mom and pop video stores were opening up. Now, they were mainly renting porn, but that doesn't matter. They were still popping up everywhere. And back then, if you wanted to buy a videotape like E.T., it was $79. So people would rent it. Some people wanted to make copies of it and stuff like that. So my dad started a business with my mom out of the garage, out of her car, going door to door to all the mom and pop video stores all over the place. And she would basically knock on the door and show all the accessories that they sold and build the business. And my dad, we grew up on Broadfield Place, so that's why the company is called Broadfield Distributing. My dad would always joke, no, it's the broad in the field. My mom was the broad in the field selling all the stuff back when that term was, you know, politically okay.
You could say
and
that.
And we grew, and we had some hot runs. We had a big run with the early video game, you know, Atari video game that boomed, that happened, and it busted. And we had thousands and thousands of dollars of cartridges and left-handed game controllers and things like that never sold.
I didn't know that.
When it busted. And then what happened was, in the mid-90s, we got involved with a company called Videonics that was starting to take the boxes that could do things like add titles to a video. I mean, people take it for granted now, but it used to be where even putting like Alex Fox, Gary Bettan on the video while I was speaking was a big freaking deal. You know, and if you remember, you look at like an all-star game from 1992, you're like, oh my God, that passed his graphics. So this company made cool stuff like that. And we were selling their stuff, and they wanted to go public. And we became such a big part of their business that their VC, their equity guy, said, well, you know, you're not gonna be able to go public as long as these guys are such a big part of your business. So this guy said, all right, so rather than grow the other part of my business, I'll just fire these guys. So he fired us. We did a show for like end users in the city. After the show, it was a great show. We broke out the show. The next morning we had breakfast and we were fired.
Wow.
It was a blow. I mean, it was a big part of our business. It was hot, high, holy hell.
Mm.
And at about that same time, I was starting to see that there was computer-based cards that could let you do even more than this thing could.
Okay.
So Videonics had this product that was going to be the MX1. It was going to be a mixer that would allow you to do this great effect called the dissolve, where one video could dissolve into the other. Before then, you always had a wipe or a fade to black. You couldn't do that. So it was this cool product that could do it, and it got pulled out from under us. We had, I think, 500 on pre-order where we were taking deposits for him from customers. It was horrible. He wouldn't even let us fill our pre-order. So fast forward, me and my brother are walking around the Consumer Electronics Show, and Rich goes to pick up a golf ball from like a jug with golf balls in it. And while he's there, he goes, Gary, is this thing doing what the MX1 does? He pulls me over. So I go, look at it. It's this company, Fast Electronics, this German company who's got this product called the Movie Machine that allowed you to put a couple of boards in a 486. There weren't even Pentium computers yet, ISA slot computers. And if you had the talent and the ability and the luck to make this thing work, you could do all these cool video things. So we went and started talking to him about it in the room. And all of a sudden, these guys are like, wait, you know what this is? You know what this is? Like, wait, come in this room. Wait, come in this room. Me and my brother come in this room, and all of a sudden, 3 or 4 Germans show up, and they're starting to talk to us with these heavy German accents. What's this doing? And then the next thing you know, it's me and my brother in this room that's got like these big red velvet curtains because it's one of those off the side rooms in the convention center. It's not full. And there's like 15, 20 Germans surrounding us. And me and my brother just looking at each other and saying, this is never a good thing for Jewish people. It never works out good.
What do we get into?
But it ended out being a fantastic thing because this company was looking to have a place in America. We saw what it was, and that got us into what we call desktop video, the early days of being able to edit a video on your computer. We already had a division called the electronic mailbox that was selling like copy guard protectors and other things through the back of magazines like Video and Video Review. We got into this desktop video thing. CompuServe had a little their forums, and there was AOL and things like that, and the internet was very early. There wasn't even like web browsers quite yet. Netscape was just starting to come out. And I took this board set home, bought a computer, put it in the computer, got it going, would answer people's questions about it, was online selling it, and all of a sudden we got really big. And then I would say, okay, I'm going to get this computer from Gateway, and I'll get another board and I'll install it. And I would post my actual receipt from Gateway or Dell on an article I would write and publish on our website.
I want to talk about that.
And I'd say, if you buy this, you'll get it. And I laughed because we still have the poster somewhere. We were in the top 500 internet companies in the early days of the internet based on selling. I still have friends who I can remember. I would tell them I'm selling stuff on the internet, and they would say, "Isn't that illegal?" Right. We were bigger than Amazon at one point, but like obviously West. They went in a different direction.
yeah, but it was like the Wild West, and like I guess it just takes forward-thinking people to really not give up. Seems like you had a couple failures, right?
Oh yeah, we had failures and we had to learn, and there was internal family strife and stuff like that. But I learned I was encoding the website by hand back then, and Jim, our marketing guy, teased me. He says, just remember, you're the guy who put blue and green fonts on a purple background. So it's like, I can't do anything that has to do with colors. I admit it.
But you mentioned writing for articles. Now, were you always working for your family, or did you branch out first and do other things? I mean, I know a lot of what you did was writing up reviews. Right out of college. When I was in college, I had a degree called MIS, Management Information Systems. It was the early days of computers being used for business. So I was Management Information Systems and Finance, and I sent out my resume, and I knew I had a family background in consumer electronics. So my dad sent me an issue of some consumer electronics magazine that had every consumer electronics company in the United States, and I sent my resume to every single one of them. And on the bottom of the resume, I listed every computer language I knew. And I got all these rejection letters. No one said yes. And this one company, Philips Magnavox, said yes because I knew this very arcane language that their finance system was based on, called FCS EPS. It was early, crazy. And I could program in that, and I got the job. And one of the things that I did is I worked for the product planning group, and I would tunnel through my ability to write reports and pull data out to show the product planning people that the reason why they weren't making money wasn't the products they were making. It was that the salespeople were giving the products away, and the sales team was insisting they weren't. And I pulled out all these reports. And once again, it wasn't I was the guy who just did it. The manager I worked for, this guy, Ron Marsiglio, felt he was getting screwed and that he was being blamed for problems that weren't going on. And what turned out, this was the early days of Circuit City and places like that. And what was happening was a channel shift was happening to the company. Circuit City and Best Buy were taking so much product
and they were making special deals for them, that it wasn't that they were giving them better pricing than they ever did before. But now, rather than being 2 or 3% of the product mix, they were 30% of the mix. They were buying cheaper. And the companies like Montgomery Wards that were buying these more expensive, marked up units, Sears, were doing worse and worse.
Right.
So the average price of the products was falling dramatically, but no one could understand why. And it was when I dug those reports and plotted them with a plotter that really drew the lines with markers that would go pick up another marker, draw another line.
Yeah.
That's what that won over the Dutch guys. And they said, yeah, we have a bigger problem. We have to design a whole generation ahead. And they used that to justify going digital, which was, heresy at the time in televisions.
Wow. You were really like in it. You were in the trenches.
Always a computer geek, always into technology.
That's awesome. And so you would also write though, right? Was that something you did on the side, or is that for another business?
I'm sorry, I knew there was an actual question there that I didn't answer. So went to work for the family business. They needed a finance person. They were working, and we were getting some products, and we got a product in, and this magazine called Camcorder Magazine. It was a JVC product called the JXS V55 mixer. Didn't do dissolves, but it did like fade to green, fade to blue, green wipes, things like that.
Okay.
Color correction. They were going to do an article for it for JVC, and whoever was the author missed his deadline.
Okay.
So we had placed a full page ad because they had told us the product was going to be in the magazine. Well, we were going to pull the ad, and the guy said, well, I said, well, without the article, we'll pull the ad. The guy said, well, he said, we don't have the author. I said, I'll write the article.
Nice.
So I wrote the article. It was like a Thursday, handed it on Friday. It ended up being in the magazine, and I got paid, I think, like $175 or something for it. And I would be a monthly contributor to Camcorder Magazine.
Wow.
And that was how I started writing for magazines that we were in. And then when we started the web, I started writing my own articles, to be on the website. Right. I'm going to take my headset off right now because I'm going to cough.
Okay, yeah.
You want to do shout outs to people?
Yeah, I'll do that. Cool. Let's see. Oh, well, you got a lot. You know what? I think this is a good spot. I'm going to run like a 3-minute ad, and then we'll come back and read the things so we can use the bathroom, do whatever we got to do.
Cool. Perfect.
All right. Awesome.
Hey guys, how you doing? Still a Fox here. How you guys doing in this crazy, crazy world we're living in today? With everything that's going on, it's pretty dreary. But we do have some good entertainment on Sundays at 2 p.m. on Voodoo Water TV. Please join us every Sunday at 2 p.m. on Voodoo Water TV. It's a podcast hosted by Alexander Fox. And while you're enjoying the show, where we have really good people and diverse entertainers, please click on the merch button and check it out. Check out our merch. And some of the stuff that we have is if you have a computer desk and you need a new mouse pad, we have one for you. It's very nice quality, thick, and with our logo, Voodoo Water TV. Right? We have stickers. You can decorate your laptop. You can decorate your bumper. You can decorate anything you want, and we'll show our logo of Voodoo Water TV. Right? Don't forget, the show is at 2 p.m. on Sundays, every Sunday on Voodoo Water TV. And for those chilly days, chilly nights and mornings, we have a beautiful hoodie that has our logo, Voodoo Water TV. Right, for our shows on Sundays at 2 p.m. And we have a beautiful mug.
How does it work?
When you having your coffee or tea, and it has our logo, Voodoo Water TV. So while you're enjoying the show, please, click on the merch, select some of the stuff, and we also have these cool shirts with our logo of Voodoo Water TV, right? For our shows on Sundays, every Sunday at 2 p.m. with our host, Alexander Fox. So, get back to the show and enjoy the rest of it.
All right, cool. All right, I'm gonna have to let me fix this real quick, and we'll get some shout out here.
Thought I changed the camera angle up. Is that good or bad?
It will be fine in 2 seconds. There we go. I don't know how much further I can go this way. There we go. This is part of the live show, guys. You know. There we go. Good enough.
Cool.
So yeah, let's get some shout outs here. It looks like Adam has a lot to say. I don't know if we can get to every single one, but we will try. Sally Ann, thank you for tuning in. Let's see. All right, so Adam says, and thanks for tuning in, Adam. Let's see. Libertarianism for the win. He says to read Ayn Rand. Ayn Rand?
Ayn Rand, yeah. Atlas Shrugged, probably my favorite book of all time.
Okay, there you go. Didn't know that. What kind of...
Wanted to name my daughter Dagny, but my wife would not let me.
What is the book about?
It's really the story of John Gate. If I got this wrong, it might be Gold, but I think it's John Gate. And it's a world of a industrial world where the basic socialism is run amok, and they're rounding up and not allowing the leaders of the free enterprise, the capitalist systems, the big people who run the railroads and all that. They're treated poorly and hounded and stuff like that. And it's the war of capitalism versus kind of a socialist takeover of the United States.
Oh, wow. Is that it's like a fake history? It's like a...
It's not even history. It doesn't pretend to be set in any particular, time or something. It's definitely in the U.S., with U.S. cities and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But it's a really great read, and it made a huge impact on my life. I read it while I was down in Knoxville, Tennessee, working for Phillips. A friend who I had met suggested I read it. And it was just an incredible, incredible book.
Okay, cool. We'll have to I'll have to check that out, actually.
Cool.
Let's see. He says, people always jump to call libertarianism as heartless. The first few things that need to be looked at is the military spending, ending the war on drugs, and taking a look at the place in the world as a whole, our place in the world. Only once those are done, then can we begin discussing the smaller things. And people...
Yeah, I'm going to say I think Adam hit the nail on the head, We can't afford to be the police department for the world. If the world wants us to be the police department, they got to pay for it. I know that sounds like Trump, but the truth of the matter is we have an military-industrial complex that takes away things that could be building roads, bridges, and other things that we want in this country, and we don't have it. And the other tenet is you have to have individual responsibility. You really do.
Why? I don't understand how we got to a point. I mean, I get it. I guess I understand. But just because Trump says something, it could be correct. Why does it have to be? Oh, well,
That's the world we live in, my friend.
So weird. It's like, because that's exactly
it breaks. It really breaks my heart because listen, I think Trump's an asshole. He says stupid stuff, but a lot of his policies I happen to have agreed with.
Right.
And I think we do need to treat the world differently. But I'm a libertarian, but I happen to have agreed on Trump's tariff war with China, and I agreed with it because I felt China was not playing fair. They were abusing our patents, stealing our intellectual property, and that can't be allowed.
Right.
And I felt that that's what it was about. A lot of people saw it about just the U.S. paying higher prices, but I never felt it was about that. It was about making China be responsible. They use slave labor. Right. No one seems to mind it. Your Apple iPod is made by people making next to nothing. Your Nike sneakers. It's great that the NBA is talking about Black Lives Matter, but the conditions that these kids who make the sneakers that they get paid millions of dollars to endorse are horrifying.
Right. It's like, I think there's a lot more to it too. Like, I get it. He says a lot of stupid shit that as a president, I don't think he should be saying. But for how many years did people say, I just want someone that's not full shit, that just says whatever, and it
says what they mean, right?
Well, we got
Be careful what you wish for.
Yeah. So who knows? We'll see. Let's see. People on food stamps should not be allowed to purchase alcohol, period. I guess I agree with that. I don't really see I don't know. I feel like alcohol is something mentally for the community. Like right now, if all the liquor stores shut down,
I think people have the right to vices, including poor people can have vices also.
Right.
But they need to have those decisions have ramifications. And one of the things you see is, lottery numbers that takes advantage of poor people in poor neighborhoods. They're grasping for that straw that hopes that takes them out of it.
Yeah.
But the truth of the matter is they're the suckers who are putting the money into it. And it's a horrible situation. One of the things that I wanted to talk about on the show if we got a chance, because it's something that I feel I bring to people is one of the things schools don't teach you is personal finance and how to take care of yourself with finance.
So true. Yes.
And I know every employee I've had at some point or other has come to me, including brothers and nephews and you and Kim, on some financial, information and help. And like the most important thing that I can tell you is don't run up credit card debt.
Yeah.
Student debt is scary. Credit card debt's at 19, 20, 25%. If you're running up credit card debt, you can never break even. You're pacing yourself behind the 8 ball. I recommend all young people get a credit card and use it, but you should be paying it off every month. The only time you don't pay it off is when something bad happens that you can't, or you're making a big purchase and they're subsidizing you to make that big purchase, where they're saying they'll give you, no interest payments or something over time. But to be paying 19, 18, 15% when it is insane, when all you're earning is less than 2% on CD-based savings, and even getting a 6% return on the stock market is felt to be great. But you're giving 18% on money that you'll never catch up. You'll never get out of that debt. So rule number one is put those credit cards away. And if you have credit card debt, you stop everything you're doing. You pay off that credit card that's the highest rate credit card as fast as you can. And you get to the point where you're carrying no credit card debt, your life will change.
That's what I'm doing this year. I have it mapped out. Because, listen, you know what? I need the equipment. I'm a professional hobbyist. So it's like I wanted all the top things I could get. I did it. You know what I mean? But by the end of the year, I'm out of credit card debt, and I'm only paying things with cash. I'm going to have some bills, reoccurring bills on my credit card to keep my credit up and stuff. But
you're leveraging capital. That's good. You're taking capital to put it in something that's, your hobby or your side hustle. That's good.
Yeah. Leveraging
your capital because you're going out at night and you're spending, $150 in a bar when you can't even save $50 a month is insane. And that brings me to my second most important thing that everyone should do. And that is everyone now has some form of electronic banking. If you have a checking account, you need to set up a savings account. And whenever your payday is the following Monday, you need to transfer a fixed amount every week into that checking account. Or every other week. If it's $50, $25, $100, it doesn't matter. You always do it. That is your money, your savings. You don't plan on spending it any other way. It's your money. Now, if you accumulate that money and it becomes $3,000 or $4,000, you want to take a trip for $1,500, that's good. You're doing it with your money. You're not doing it with credit card debt. I guarantee you will think a lot closer about how that money is being spent when it's the money you saved versus credit card spending, which you don't think about till the bills come in. So it forces you to look at your spending very, very differently. If you get disciplined doing that when you're young with your first job, that money will build over time ridiculously for you by consistently putting money in. And there'll be ups and downs, but ideally, as any young adult, any American with a job, you want to be able to have 8 weeks worth of not even pay, 8 weeks worth of overhead covered in a savings account somewhere. So something bad happens.
Bills.
You could make 2 months rent. You could pay for the electric, your car payments, everything had to be made for 2 cycles. Now that's not easy to get there. You're not going to get there overnight. But if you say that amount that I have with my bills and my rent, I got to get to $5,000 in the bank. Well, $100 a week might not be practical for you right now, but $50 maybe. So it's 2 years to get there. You get there. Then once you have that amount, you start setting goals that says, okay, 5,000 was what I needed. Now I want to get to 10,000. When I get to 10,000, I'm going to take a trip. I'm going to buy that bigger car. Or perhaps what you're going to do is say, I'm going to take that money and make it work for me wealth-wise, and I'm going to start investing in mutual funds or the stock market. But I'm still going to keep that 8-week nut that I need to have so that if crisis happens, I have something to fall back on. I look at what happened with this whole COVID thing. Now, no one dreamed we'd be in this for 5 months. But I guarantee people who had that nest egg at 8 weeks are in a lot better shape now than people who had nothing.
It's so funny, though. That's not funny, but I did want to have a little breakdown. I was going to ask you to give us some tips and your thoughts. So we're on tip number 2. So one thing I was going to ask, do you think people should be focusing on paying off their debt right now?
Yes.
Right. So you kind of answer that. So no matter what, just get out of the credit card debt.
Well, any debt that you have that's paying a rate that's over 5 or 6%.
Okay.
If you're paying 5 or 6% on a car loan or a credit card, that's okay. You're okay with that. But what kills your ability to save is inflation, which we don't really have right now. But if things get 2 or 3% more expensive every year, and you're paying 6% on debt you had, you never catch up, you never get out of it.
Right.
So it's real important to understand that debt is what's holding you back. And like student loans that are at low rates, they're frustrating. It's a lot of money, and maybe you were foolish to get yourself behind that 8 ball.
Right.
But also, they're giving you an installment plan. You're able to pay your way out of it, make the payments that are on the schedule. You're stuck with them, but that's not your problem. The problem is the credit card debt that so many of these people with student loans then run up, either while they're paying off the student loans, which is trading bad money for a good loan for a terrible loan, or what they're doing is a lot of people want that instant gratification. So something good happened, you got a raise, you got a bonus, you graduated, you feel you're entitled to get yourself something nice.
Right.
And you are, if it's money you have. When you're doing that with debt that you have to pay back at 15 or 19%, you're making a horrible, horrible long-term decision. So credit card debt is the #1 enemy of people 25 to 35 years old.
So how would you recommend someone build their credit?
That's a great question. #1, now it's going to sound crazy. Get a credit card.
Right. Yeah.
So you want to have a credit card or two. You want to pay it off every month. Every now and then you want to allow yourself to make a bigger purchase. Like, let's say the bigger purchase is that you want to go, let's pretend we can travel again.
Right.
And you want to go to South by Southwest in Austin because you want to check out all the stuff that's going on there, the technology, the cool bands. You know you're going to need $2,500. You know that where you are right now, you can put $1,000 down. It'll take you 2 or 3 months to pay that off, but you think it's a good thing. It's worth it. You make the decision. As long as you have the discipline to say, after 3 months, I'm paid off, I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
Paying incredibly stupid interest rates for a month or two, that's kind of financing something, and you weigh that value.
Yeah.
Having when you're making minimum payments or keeping those balances on there and not paying that off, that's the insanity. Now, the good thing is with your credit card, if you do pay off that amount in 2 or 3 months and they saw that you had some debt and you paid it off, they love people like you even more. The person who pays their credit card off every month, they don't make enough money on it.
I tell that to people, believe it or not, that they want to see that you're going to take the loan out. They got to make money off you.
So you definitely want to use credit a little bit. And I always recommend that people get an American Express card, because in the business world, it's kind of seen a little differently.
Okay.
And you keep your purchases on that to what American Express is really supposed to be, like meals and entertainment, taking people out for business stuff.
Yeah.
And then we get an American Express card. And if you're going to go out twice a month for a nice dinner, and it's going to be $150, so it's going to be $300 at the end of the month, put that on your American Express card, work it into your budget, and pay it off every month.
Right.
Other stuff, use your credit card. Maybe that's where you link your Amazon account to. That's where you link, you could go to the food store and pay it off. One of the nice things about using your credit card for all those expenses, if you're paying it off, is it really lets you a good place where you can get those numbers, tie them in, make a little budget, and see what you're really spending, because it's all there. The toughest thing to keep track of is cash. If you're going to the ATM machine, taking out cash,
yes,
you don't really know where it went. Where at least on the credit card, you know where it went. So you can look at the statement and say, oh my God, my budget was $300. I went out 5 times. I don't even remember. Oh yeah, that's right. Bob invited me out for drinks on Wednesday. We ended up getting burgers afterwards. Then we went to a club. And when you can look back at that, you can make rational decisions and say, okay, yeah, I messed up that month. I'm going to tighten it up next month. I'm going to get tighter. But #1 thing, minimum, if you can, $50, ideal $100 each paycheck. Put it in that savings account. It's your money. And when that money builds, good things will happen. Third point.
Yep.
If you've got enough money that you're going to think about what you do with, there's something called the rule of 72. Okay. And the rule of 72 is a shortcut you learn when you're a finance or business manager, and it's how long it takes money to double.
Okay.
So if I get 6% return on my money should double in 12 years. And that's the power of compounding.
Okay.
So if you are 30 years old and you could put $10,000 at 6%, and when you're 42, it becomes 20,000.
Right.
When you're 54, it becomes 40,000. When you're 66, it now became 80,000.
Right.
Now, if you're putting 1,000 every year behind that, or 10,000 every year behind that, and it's doubling on the same thing, you eventually end up with a big freaking pile of money.
Right.
Now, 6%, you're not getting that on a savings account. You're going to have to be in the stock market, and you got to think of a long-term return that you're going to leave that money there for some ups and downs. But an historic return of 6% to the stock market is not greedy or out of hand. You can put your money in index funds that follow the S&P or the market as a whole, and you just put your money in there, and you put some money in the bonds. You can diversify your portfolio into like 3 or 4 funds that manage your risk the way you want to measure it. Like I always suggest for people your age, if you have a 401k, invest that in age-based things. So if you say I'm going to be 65 in 2075, that's the year that you put your to invest in, 2050. You let the smart people make investments based on where you are risk wise. And what happens is the further away you are from that date, the more aggressive it is, and it gets more and more conservative as you get closer.
As you go. Yeah, it makes sense. Now, do you recommend people do these things on their own? Or do you...
I really do think young people can do this on their own. I think there's families of mutual funds called Vanguard that is very low load and gives you exceptionally they have a lot of index funds tied to different indexes. Like my daughter said, where am I going to invest some money in? I told her, go to Vanguard, pick 3 or 4 funds. If you want to bounce them off me, it depends on how you feel your risk is. So she's got some money in bonds. She's got most of her money in something that's more like an index fund. Then she put a little bit in a more aggressive piece, which I think is fine.
Right.
You're managing your portfolio, which is great. But if you can get a 6% return, great. If you get a 10% return, that means your money doubled in 7 years.
Right. Yeah.
And the inverse of that doubling is think about debt now. If you're paying 19%, the rule of 72 applies also.
Yeah,
which means you have to pay back double every 3.5 years.
That's insane.
That's why credit card debt kills you.
Yeah. That's really good. I think anybody could use that, especially right now, like we kind of mentioned. I mean, look what happened. I mean, just 1 month and people were like kind of hitting their head against the wall. I mean, here we are, 6 months, right? 5-6 months.
Yep.
And it's not.
And then I have one more piece of advice. If you have people listening who are ready to start a family, who just started a family,
I was going to ask. Okay, go ahead.
You want to start a 529. A 529 fund is a fund that you can put money into that invests for your kids' college. It is on a state level. If you invest in the state you're in, so if you're in New York, you invest in the New York 529, you get an actual state. You pay no state income tax on the amount that you invest. You should put that in on a regular period, just like that paycheck. Like, let's say you're progressing and you get married in a few years, you want to have kids, and you were putting in $100 a paycheck.
Right.
I would say now take 25 or 50 of it, put it into the 529. Put the 529 to be indexed to when you think that first child will reach college, and put that money into it. The other nice thing about a 529 is if you have family members who want to do something for your kids, you tell them, I don't want savings bonds. Don't give them cash for their Hanukkahs. Open a 529, and every birthday, put money in the 529.
That's a really
good idea. That'll grow, and that'll pay for college.
That's awesome. That's a really smart idea, actually. I remember my grandma used to always give me bonds.
And the nice part about it is if you have multiple kids, you can move the money from one 529 to another with no penalty. So as your kids get older, you start figuring who's where and where they are. Like when my daughter Gabby was going to graduate, her last semester, she only needed to take 2 courses. She was a part-time student, left about 10 grand in her 529. So you know me, I'd planned this to the penny. It was going to work out. So I moved that into Jillian's, so it was cool. It's a very good instrument. And it's a super thing to do if you're starting a family. You can't do it till you have the kid, because it's in the kid's name that you're investing in. But it's the number one thing you as a parent can do, especially in today's world. That money will grow and it'll compound, and you'll see that you'll get to the point where that kid's in school. You're probably gonna need $100,000 to even send them to a state school.
Yeah.
And putting in $50,000 from when the kid's born to when he goes to school, you'll probably earn equal to that or more.
Yeah.
So that the 50 you took out of your pocket can become 100,000 to pay for college, and it's really a super smart tool to be done. Like I said, I use the New York 529s because there are 2 things. I get the tax write-off of the state part, so you get about a 4 or 5% extra earnings your first when you invest the funds that year. So if I put $1,000 every year, that first $1,000 when I put it in gets an extra kick that year because of the tax advantage.
Yeah.
Not in the earnings, but I know I get to keep that money. And they also happen to use Vanguard. So it's Vanguard indexed funds that they go with. So it goes back to my first recommendation. So I'm very big fan of the 529s.
I think maybe what this tells me and everybody else is if you start just doing a little bit, then you'll start knowing the ins and outs of it, kind of like how you kind of just know it now at this point. I mean, granted, you have a background in it, but it sounds like this is something that everybody can get into.
Not only can everyone get into it, when it's your own money, you'll see that you'll learn and you'll care for it a lot better. And when it's debt, we don't really care. We just want to get out of it. And we're always hoping some bonus comes along, some birthday present, some magic money falls out of the sky. You know, for a lot of people that happens. But take control. If you take control, you can really make good things happen. And, you know, one of the things that we talk about COVID and what's going on to circle, you know, before COVID hit, the talk was how young people, Generation Z, young millennials, they don't want to own homes. They want to live in the city. They want to have this city life where it's these urban, commercial, residential, mixed-use areas, and they'll rent forever. Why would I ever own a house? All of a sudden, this whole thing hit, and they said, wait, all of a sudden, these dense urban areas aren't the thing to be. Housing prices on Long Island are through the roof. People are selling their houses sight unseen on virtual tours because people with money in the city are clamoring to get out of it. Now, how long will that last? I don't know. But the point is that one of the things that you have as someone with a good job, you want to build wealth. The best way you could build wealth in this country is by buying a home. Buying a home, you get to buy a home where this is leverage and leverage working for you. You buy a home and you put 20% down. So let's say you buy a house for $250,000 and you put $50,000 down. You live in that house for 10 years and it becomes worth $350,000. Well, you could think of it that your house went up from 250 to 350, but really what you did is you grew your wealth from 50 to 150. You tripled your wealth because that's the part that you grew in, plus whatever you paid off on the mortgage loan along the way, plus you lived in the house, so you weren't paying rent because you were paying a mortgage. And when I look at kids who are paying, you know, $2,000, $2,500 a month in rent, I'm like, dude, no. You got to get yourself a starter house. Save some money, bite the bullet, get in that home, because that's how you'll build that wealth. I'm not suggesting you buy a house with like 5% and no money down. No, no, no. You want to put a chunk down so you can qualify for the right mortgage rate. And when you go to buy a house, they want to know your financial situation. So when you say you have 20% down, an owner will take that bid over someone who's maybe offering the same thing with only 5% down. They might even take your lower bid because your money's more of a sure thing.
Makes sense. Makes sense.
So that's the strength you want to leverage. And if you can get to that point, you know, where you can put $50,000 away to buy a $250,000 house, you will never regret it, because if the market goes down, just keep living in the house. You only have to sell the house when you want to, or something in life happens that you have to. Well, God willing, that doesn't happen, and hopefully you've got insurance and other things to take care of it. But even when that stuff does happen, so you gotta wipe off, you lick your wounds and go on it. You know, one of the biggest things that kills wealth is divorce. Because the divorce happens, you got to sell the house, maybe at a bad time, and take a loss. You know, I don't hear any stories about people who got divorced when the market was at the top and split so much money. They were both giddy about it, and no one fought because they got so much money for the house. It just doesn't ever work out that way, you know? Because also, let's face it, you know, financial troubles tend to be part of why couples get divorced. So the good times produce less divorces than the bad times. But we're straying. What I wanted to stress was, if the market goes down and you can afford to still make your payments and you still have your job, you don't care. And when people get more money for their house than you thought it was worth in your neighborhood, you don't get mad. You don't get jealous. You high five. It just means your house is going to be worth that much more when and if you want to sell it. And you know what's a great way to build even more wealth? Take that $50,000 you had. It grew to now where you have $150 worth of equity. Buy another house for $25 down on your $150. Now you have a $750,000 house. Maybe interest rates are low to the point where your mortgage only is a few $100s more expensive. Now your taxes might be a big difference on that, but you know, hopefully you're making more money too. And now your wealth builds, and that's your wealth. That's something that you have forever, something you can give to your kids, or that you can sell for your retirement.
And you're protecting against inflation and stuff too.
Absolutely. You're protecting against a lot of things as long as you take care of your asset. You know, if you let your house go to shit, shame on you. But you know, as long as you keep and maintain your house, you know, there's good things you can do. And I just think a lot of people were misled and misinformed on the value of equity, not understanding how leveraging equity allows you to build wealth.
And I think once I get out of this little bit of debt that I have here, I'm going to start fresh next year and start doing the saving so I can divide, you know, make a little interest on some things, and hopefully within 5 years, you know, get my first starter home.
Well, Alex, that is my last financial tip. And that is, I did this for the business. If you remember back in 2015, I made a plan that I called everyone was Broadfield 2020. You want to have a 5-year plan. Now, some people say update it every year. I say no. But if you make a 5-year plan that you're going to stick to, the most important thing is sticking to the plan, not updating it.
Right.
Make a long-term plan. Understand it's where you want to get to. You're not going to go in a straight line. There's going to be some ups. There's going to be downs. There's going to be bumps and bruises, and there's going to be some windfalls.
Yep.
Know where you want to go, and the time to start looking at reevaluating that 5-year plan is in years 4 and 5, or maybe even it's year 6. Because if you got there and you busted it out, well, you need to have a more aggressive plan. Or if you got there and you barely made it, then maybe you're a little too aggressive last time. But the bottom line is that 5-year plan, that looking forward, that having that longer term outlook on life, it just opens you up to so many more good things in general in life when you think about it, not in months and weeks or a year, but even a 5-year chunk. And that's like, I think that's going to be important for people getting through this whole COVID mess.
Yeah.
This thing's gone on for 5 months now. It seems like an eternity, but 5 years from now, even if this thing goes on for 18 months, we're going to look back at it and say it really sucked.
Yeah.
But, I have that saying that I say all the time: when life gives you lemons, makes lemonade. And when you have a 5-year plan, you're looking on what opportunities let me make lemonade, and you've got a structure, a focus on what you're trying to do.
Yeah.
And you'll be surprised how well that can get there. And the 5-year plan can include things like growing your podcast. It can include things like writing a song or getting back into music. It could be buying a house. It could be getting married even if you don't know a girl yet. You can have these plans that you want to do. And you'll see if you focus your life on these positive plans, and you think about these plans, and you evaluate what your decisions are based on achieving that goal, goals are achievable.
Yeah.
And there's no goal that isn't, because you might not be the person that does it, but someone's going to write a hit song that sells 1 million records. Someone's going to set the land speed record in a car. Someone's going to make someone's going to figure out how to cure something or other. These goals don't happen because people turned around and said, oh, eureka, it's a lot of hard work. There's no such thing as instant success. There's no such thing as even eureka and luck. I still say, the luck happens because you make your luck by putting as much opportunities in front of you and having the ability to seize
increasing
opportunities.
The chances.
A lot of people have lucky things happen to them and do nothing with it.
Yeah.
How many lottery winners end up being destitute? It's ridiculous. Have a plan. Have a life plan of where you're going that has to have a financial component, but it should have a spiritual component. It should have a lifestyle component of things you want to do. You wanted to get in shape. You didn't expect to happen in a week or a month. And your goal wasn't to get in shape in 6 months and then be fat in 5 years. Your goal is to be a healthier person.
Exactly.
You're doing it. You set a goal. Set goals. It's such an important thing. I think a 5-year window is something that if you expand your mind to 5 years, you'll be amazed. Now, for an American, 5 years seems like a long time. Japanese, Chinese culture, they think in terms of decades and century level plans when they look at goals and plans on a corporate, on a family-based level. So Americans getting to 5 years is like stepping out of our comfort zone tremendously, whereas other cultures, they consider that to be a short-term fly-by-night plan.
No, exactly. I love the idea too. We talked about this before, where it was like, write it down somewhere and look at it. And then it's like, anytime you're doing a minor or major decision, just does it go against you achieving your goal? Does it go against your mission? And I've been using that, and it's so powerful. It's a powerful thing to have working for you.
The former superintendent who was at our school district had a saying and said, what isn't measured doesn't get achieved.
Right.
If you measure your progress against the goal, you can achieve it. How do you do that? You write it down. You have milestones. You have things that you want to hit. And you check it and you see, how am I doing against it? And not everything can be measured in decimal points and things like that.
Right.
But you can always say, this is where I wanted to be. Am I going along that path? Maybe you want to leave a better ecological footprint on the planet. I'm not saying anything's right or wrong.
Yeah.
If that's your goal, are you doing things that are making it happen? Are you living that life? Are you doing what your goals say you can do? And I think one of the things that's happening in America right now is in general, so many people have lost their way on that, where we're saying our goals are one thing and our actions are another thing. And we have short-term goals that are actually totally getting in the way of our long-term goals because we're not looking at things as a continuum. Yeah. And I think that's some of the nonsense you see in politics now. The goal is to get elected, not to fix things.
Right.
Some of the stuff you see economically that's going on, I'm going to open a store and I expect it to be, lighting the world on fire in 2 years, as opposed to, I want to have a restaurant that gets written up for being a 25-year-old family restaurant that's in the second or third generation of the family cooking. You don't see people bringing that level of pride and commitment that they used to, and we need it. This country needs that really badly. If everyone had a 5-year goal, and that goal, they work towards that goal, even if all our goals were different, I think the country would be a better place.
Well, we talked about, or we kind of talked, we brushed upon it. School's not really teaching like maybe home ec or like maybe how to balance a budget or what a budget is. Maybe part of that curriculum could be for the next 4 years of your whatever. I don't know. In Jersey it was 4 years for high school, whatever it was. What is your long-term goal? And then maybe the last bit of the class could be your final. I don't know, but that would be such a great idea. That would be such an awesome way to get the mindset changed, because it's a wholesome thing. It's a whole thought process here. We're all connected.
It's rewiring your brain towards long-term goals and trying not. I sound like Tony Robbins now, I think, and trying not to put things in your own way that get in the way of your goals. And it's funny because like my kids, when they were growing up, were getting fights with their friends and stuff like that, and I'd be like, okay, is your goal to win this fight, or is your goal to have your friends all getting along again and being happy? And I said, if you want to win this fight, it's a whole different tack. But maybe the thing is to get to where everyone's happy and everyone's cool and doing this thing that you wanted to do down the road. So, brush aside. Sometimes you got to let the other guy win to get the longer win that you want. And sometimes you realize that you're having a fight about something that is so counterproductive to every one of your goals that I'm not saying you lay down and you give in. You just choose not to participate in the fight.
Yeah. Well, it's just what we just talked about. If it's going against your mission statement, then don't do it. It's always a no.
Exactly. Exactly. And I think you are a great example of that because, I take a lot of pride, and I know Kim does too. And I'm going to build up Alex a little bit. I'm going to screw this on him, so I hope he doesn't get too upset. But Alex wasn't always this put together guy who you met right now. When I first met Alex, he was going to a million different records at the same time. Yeah. He wanted to be everything at the same time yesterday. And it took a lot of coaching and mentoring and just you growing up in general to have that happen. But over the last couple of years, when Kim stepped down and you had to step up, you've stepped up, you've done what you need to do for me. And I also look at what you're doing for yourself on your own personal life.
Thank you.
And I'm saying, this is a guy who's got his act together. And, there's going to be speed bumps. This shit's going to happen. It's going to get in the way of that. But by having that focus and taking responsibility and setting those goals, kid, you're going to move mountains. You're going to do great stuff, not just for my company, but for yourself, because you've got your head on right and you're looking at things in the right way and you're thinking about long-term. Doesn't mean the short-term crap doesn't hurt.
Sure.
Doesn't mean it doesn't mess up your head and mess up your plan and stuff. But you can't dwell on that shit, because if you dwell on that shit, you derail the big prize, and then you let the other guys or the bad things in life win.
Yep.
The way you win is by achieving your goals, then setting even cooler, better goals later. And like I said, those goals could be silly things. It could be learning how to ski. It doesn't have to be stuff that's all about. I don't want to make this as this is all about business and finance. It really isn't.
It's about life.
It's about those life things you want to achieve that can bring you either happiness or a sense of accomplishment, or just make you feel that, hey, I did this. Yeah. And you know what? When you do something yourself, it feels a lot better when you do it alone. But you know what feels the best? When you did it yourself and it got tough and other people helped you, and all they asked you to do was smile and be happy about it and help yourself. There's nothing wrong with mentors working together, having people help you. That is not a sign of weakness. That is a sign of strength.
Yes, it is.
And the more people around you lean on, those are blessings you have. You should take advantage of those blessings, but you don't take advantage of the people. You take advantage of the blessings they can give you, and you always pay it forward, and you always pay it back. So, I'm on the board of ed. I don't do it because they pay me. I don't do it for any other reason than I feel it's my way to give to my community, to give to something that means a lot to me. And I encourage everyone, as part of your goals, giving back something to something should be a part of those goals also. It's not just a me goal.
That's so true. And you know what, Gary Bettan, I think we can leave it there. Is there anything else you would like to tell anybody? Anything last?
Yeah, real important. Buy more merch, man.
That's right.
Make this guy's side hustle work. It's got to work well enough they can have extra money for his goals, but not well enough that he wants to leave working for me.
There we go.
True or not? Did I tell you that?
You've said it 3 times to me in my life. I wish you moderate success, because we need you here. Very cool.
Well, thank you for being on the show. This is a lot of fun, Alex. I all good things for Voodoo TV, man. This is super cool, and I like that you got this stuff set up. And I would love for you to be on a segment that our team could do about, setting up a podcast, doing video, because you are doing video on some of this stuff. You're using some of the stuff we sell, some stuff we don't, but I think you're using the medium to send your message, your thoughts, to bring your brand out there.
That's right.
And that's what I think video really is. Video is the modern tool to brand yourself. And you're doing a great job with it. Keep it up, buddy.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it. And this is just it's more than a podcast. It's a live streaming platform. That's what I try to tell people. We're going to be launching all different stuff off it. But thank you so much. I really appreciate it, Gary. And
Fun show, dude.
Yeah, that's it. Thanks
for having me. I'm jumping in the pool.
Go jump in the pool. Later. Wow, that was pretty cool. Well, guys, I had a fantastic time. I hope you guys did as well. I see there's a lot of you in the chat. Thank you so much for participating. Thank you for buying the merch. Thank you for supporting. Man, really cool. I've been wanting to get Gary on. He's been a big supporter, and it was just fantastic talking to him. I'm very grateful that he could share some of these little bit of knowledge, economically, education and stuff. It's pretty cool. And that's what we're about here, right? We like to tackle some cool conversations, practical conversations, have fun. So if you haven't already, share it. Go to our YouTube, subscribe, follow us on Instagram. All the links are in below. And check out VoodooGuys.com. Do you want to start your own podcast? Do you need some storage solutions? Do you need some cameras? I mean, they're your one-stop shop for everything. Software, hardware, it doesn't matter. So go check out VoodooGuys.com. And that's it. That's it. I'm so excited. What a great show. We have some really cool guests coming up, guys. So follow along. Leave a like, leave a share, message me, hit us up on Twitter, hit us up on Instagram. If you know someone, authors, artists, musicians, business owners, therapists, whatever, if you think someone's very interesting and they would like to be on the show and we would like to have them on, come on, send us some links and stuff. And that's all I got. Have a great Sunday and thank you very much.